and welcome to this week's episode of the Marina podcast. I am, of course, your host, and today I have such beautiful guests on the show, and I say guests because we have two amazing ladies. We have Jill and Leah, who are the founder and the CEO of Man Up Australia, which is a charity organization all around the education and support regarding prostate cancer. So we're going to learn a lot from them, not just around prostate cancer and the awareness that we all should have, but also around their journey, their story, and powerful lessons and learnings that you can take from them. So ladies, thank you so much for being with me today. I so appreciate you.
No, thank you.
Pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Okay, so you may not be aware that we always ask a first question, and I want both of you to answer this. And the question is totally unrelated to your area of expertise in your story, but it's which animal best represents your personality, your energy, your way of being in life? If you had an animal that best represented you, what would it be?
Oh gosh, I would be a cat. Doesn't matter what size, I would totally legitimately be a cat. And I say that because I love in my downtime to do nothing. My idea of downtime is to spectacularly lounge on a couch somewhere, doing absolutely nothing, expending as little energy as possible. But if I need to get my hackles up and fight, I will. So that absolutely 100% defines me. And I really love food, but I'm really fussy about it. So I think that would
you got that nailed. Yeah, and I love your reasoning. That's so perfect. What about you, Jill?
I find I'm really torn there because I have to say we travel a lot, and the thing I love most when we're traveling to look at are cows. And people wonder why I love cows, but they're such a placid, no rush, no hassle free animal. Like they just plod along.
That is nothing like you.
I know, and it's nothing like me, but I wish I could be like that. That absolutely nothing would bother me, and I could just sit there all day and do what I wanted to do and have no one bother me. But that's not my life. But in my ideal world, I would love to do that. Like that. How perfect and how cute are they? I just love cows.
They're so cute. They're so cute. I'm not sure if you ever saw that. I feel like it was a Byron Bay artist, or maybe I just saw art exhibition in Byron Bay, but I'm sure you know the iconic images I'm talking about, where they have those really close-up shots of the cows and the bulls' noses and their eyelashes. They truly are stunning animals, but not often revered as such. So I love that you gave your ideal animal. That's perfect, Jill. So if you could both have a superpower, which superpower would you choose and why?
Oh, if I had a superpower, it would be to look forward and have the ability to change what is there if I didn't like it. To have the wisdom, I guess, to be able to make a difference and to go, do you know what? If I knew that was going to happen to me, I would have done this. Whereas you don't get that. And I think all the things that have impacted my life are things I have not expected. And then you've got to deal with it. And that's not always easy. So the ability to look forward, but then also I'd want to be able to change what I saw. And I wouldn't want to change everything, just the really important things. And I'm going to tell you the really important things to me are people. So I would change the people in my life that aren't here anymore. I would change that.
I love your philosophical answer. Mine's not as philosophical. The superpower I would like is actually my husband's ability to sleep through anything. It is just astounding, honestly. He can sleep through World War III legitimately. We have, just to give you an idea, we have a puppy. He has a very, very, very sensitive tummy, and if he doesn't stick to diet, we are up with puppy diarrhea every night on every hour and a half on the hour and a half. And he sleeps through all of it. He does not hear the dog crying. He does not hear me turn on lights. He does not hear me walk downstairs every hour and a half. And then he gets up in the morning and goes, "Oh, you look really tired, babe." I want that ability to sleep through anything.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like the ability to sleep well and get to sleep, it is truly a superpower. I love both of your answers. And actually, Jill, what I love about your answer too is that we so often use that saying, you know, hindsight is 2020, and you're so correct in pointing out that the future is always unknown, isn't it? And so often it takes a crisis to course correct us, you know, and to gift us, I suppose, the motivation, if you will, because well, sometimes we're, you know, our values aren't aligned until we realize we might lose something that we truly value. Our actions aren't aligned with what we value because we forget it's permanent. And so on that note, and kind of segueing in, would the two of you or whoever would like to kind of lead it, share the story of how Man Up Australia came to be? Because I imagine that was definitely one of those things of, I wish I'd known beforehand. And as a result, that's kind of what you've committed to doing, is sharing with people knowledge that you wish you'd had beforehand. Yeah, how did Man Up Australia come to be? If you can share your stories.
Oh, well, I'll start with that. So I was diagnosed with breast cancer actually in August. August is my month I could bypass. Like, if I have a month I could take out of the year and go somewhere else, it would be August. So I was diagnosed with breast cancer in August in 2004. And then had lots of treatment. And Brian, I was just coming through that when Brian was diagnosed with prostate cancer in 2009. So I was just finishing virtually all my treatment and coming out of the other end of it, and he was diagnosed with prostate cancer. So at the time, I had everything that I could possibly need. I had a breast care nurse who was the first breast care nurse at the Mater Hospital in Brisbane. I had all the services I could possibly want. And then, which gave me, I guess, the confidence to think that I've got someone in my corner. And I've got someone in my corner like 24 hours a day. Whereas when Brian was diagnosed with the prostate cancer, it was pretty much, well, here you go. This is your option. This is what we're going to do. And there was no support service. So no prostate cancer care nurse, no, I guess just that lack of someone to guide us through the proliferation of health services that you need to access. And as I said to my husband at the time, we are very well educated. We both had university degrees. I've got a psychology degree and an education degree. My husband was university educated. We'd both been educators ourselves, both been teachers. We'd owned businesses. And I said, so if we can't find the services, and I'm a pretty savvy, straightforward sort of person, and I'm like a dog with a bone if I want something. And if I had trouble, if you're a truck driver or you work on the council or you're
not university
educated and you've just, you know, an ordinary everyday guy getting through life, how are you managing? And how unfair is that? And, you know, so I thought, let's try and make a difference. And at the time, Leah was working at the Mater Foundation and fundraising. And I said to her, how hard can it be to start up a charity? And she went, well, okay, give it your best shot. We decided we'd start a charity. That took 9 months, nearly 12 months of organising. And my husband actually came up with the title of Man Up because he said, we just need to man up. We just need to do the right thing because we have people that rely on us every day. And it's not just our children and our wives, but it's all our friends and family. And we need to man up and do the right thing and not go, it's okay, mate. So he actually came up with the title of Man Up. And so originally we thought Man Up would be all about support services, and we tried to do prostate cancer care nurses. And that was really hard because getting people to be interested in something that didn't exist virtually at all was not going to happen. And we didn't have the Glenn McGraths and the Kylie Minogues and all the lovely people who did the breast cancer awareness thing. So we didn't have that. And all the men we knew who were diagnosed with prostate cancer didn't want to talk about it. So then we thought we'd start at the other end and do what we did best, because as Brian said, maybe if we start and we educate people about what they should be doing, instead of capturing them with advanced prostate cancer, we might get them in the early stages and maybe they won't need so much support. So that's why we started doing we do our Man Up educational program all around prostate cancer, and we visit about 70 regional and rural communities, which is why we spend time in the community, because you can't do that from your desk in Brisbane. You really can't.
Yes.
So doesn't work.
Not home a lot. And we found from reading the statistics that, you know, men in the bush, all those regional and rural communities had a 32% higher incidence of prostate cancer and getting it in the later stages than their metropolitan city counterparts. And it was because those guys, you know, majority of guys out in those regional and rural areas, for various reasons, like they're not university educated, they've been helping dad on the farm for generations since they were 15, you know, and these are the guys that they don't want to come into the big cities. You know, the big cities frighten them. They hate the idea of driving with traffic lights. But if we took it to them and to their little community, they were more likely to come in and, you know, have a chat and listen to our session. So that's why we take it on the road.
And I think too, it takes time for people in the regional and rural communities to get to trust you. So we've been doing this program now for 7 years, and we go back at least once every 2 years, and sometimes once every year, just to do, you know, this is a reminder of what you should be doing. But now, you know, we target male-dominated industries like mines, construction, councils. But they're used to us coming and they trust us, and we get the results because we've had men diagnosed. We're actually up to over 70 men diagnosed with prostate cancer since we've started our program on the road that we're aware of. So because we get the results and because they know us now, and originally it was Brian and I, and then as part of that story, after Brian was diagnosed with the prostate cancer, he had 5 melanomas. And then we suspect one of those went to his lungs, because he actually passed away from lung cancer in 2018. So as he got more and more unwell, Leah came on board. So now she and I do the program together. So it's 2 women talking about prostate
two
cancer.
women talking about a men's disease. We get some looks, trust me.
Oh, yes, we do. In fact, one fellow said, what are 2 Sheilas going to tell us about prostate cancer? I said, probably more than you know. It's stuck.
I think,
I'm back.
yeah,
Sorry.
I give us 1 second. I think my internet, if I can, is that better now? Yeah.
Yes, a little bit better.
A little bit better.
Beautiful. I love, you know, and firstly, you know, my deepest condolences for your loss. I can't imagine, the journey that you've been on as a family. And, you know, that's something that I'm really hearing is, you know, that you are a family and that you create a family through what you do with your message as well. But a couple of the other things that came through, and I like to point out takeaways for the listeners, because sometimes they tend to hear the story and not bring it into their own lives. And I'm, you know, as a coach, I'm very big on what's the takeaway for you? How does this apply to you? And what I heard you share there, Jill, is that, you know, back in 2009, when you first received the awareness that there was a difference in the way things were, there was a part of you that wasn't okay with that. And that not okay with that difference, you started something, which what I heard is that it then evolved. So it was originally about support nurses, and now it's become about education preemptively. And just for those who are listening, and I say this a lot, is like, whatever is the calling on your heart, move towards it. Start now and let it unfold. And it sounds like you've done that. And as a result, as a minimum, 70 lives, you know, are more empowered directly with a diagnosis, which is huge. That's 10 a year.
Yes.
I mean, how many other people can put their hand up and say, well, yeah, I directly, you know, as a superpower, talk about superpowers, ladies, I saved 10 people this year, you know, and gave them the education they need. So I love that. And I have so many questions that stem from what you've shared, but what I'd love to do first off, if it's okay with you, before we go deeper, is really just for the listener, who, you know, many of my listeners are women, but lots of men too. And women love to talk to their partners, and you know, for the men, what are the things that many men, whether they're rural or metro, don't know about this disease that you would like them to know? Like, if there was 3 things you want them to know and 3 things you want them to do, like, what would those things be? let's use this as a platform for you
I
to
think
share
the
what
very,
needs to be done.
the very first thing I would say is that early stage prostate cancer has no symptoms. That would be my first take home thing. It has no symptoms. If you're waiting for symptoms, by the time you find those symptoms, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
So it's too late to wait for symptoms. Don't do that. Because, you know, you have people go, oh, when I start having an issue, I'll go to the doctor. No, that's too late.
I guess for us, well, the second thing, big thing for me is that the stats are 1 in 5 Queenslanders get prostate cancer. The national average is 1 in 7. So for some reason, I always like to say to guys, like most things that we do in Queensland, we do it just that little bit better. And we don't know why, but I guess men should be aware of that statistics, because if you look in a room of, 20 guys, it means that 4 of you are more than likely going to end up with prostate cancer. And that's, if it's you and 19 mates, that's pretty high that 4 of you are going to get it at some point in your life. So, just to be aware that, not everyone's immune to it. You have this higher incidence and you really need to take care of yourself, and it's really simple to do so.
And I think too, you can always think it will never happen to me. And even when it happens the first time, and I can speak from experience, you don't think it can possibly happen again. But after a while, you get to realize that really bad things happen to really nice people every day, and you have no control over that. So the only way you can take control at all, and I'm on my children all the time, is test. And without being that person that's paranoid, but if there is a way that I can protect myself now and my children, I would definitely do that. And my other take-home thing is anything that suddenly is different, you should never ignore that. So suddenly, if you have a pain, because, for example, my husband, when before he was diagnosed with the lung cancer, he had a pain in his back, and he just thought it was from gardening, lifting boxes, and you can put it down to all of these things and aging. But if something's different, you should not ignore it.
Particularly if it lingers.
Particularly if it doesn't go away. And, you can say, oh, I'm getting older, but no, that's not always an excuse, and I hear the other excuse is I'm busy. Yeah. Well, are you too busy to die? And that is I think, because you don't get a choice. And that's what I said. I wish I could look forward and have a choice to change it. And you don't ever get that.
So then I guess after that, the 3 things that we would like guys to do, and I'm going to be reverberating our talk here, is, we say to guys, there's a test called a PSA test, a prostate-specific antigen test. We recommend guys, you can set up a baseline with that test if you have it every year. So we recommend to guys have it from the age of 40, set it up. The group of guys that we're missing with this and we're getting in the later stages when we can't do anything is 45 to 55. So if we set it up earlier and you have something to follow when you see a change in that, you can go and get it checked out, and hopefully you've sprung it onto it early. So, our normal sort of 3, this is what we want you to go and do is, set up an appointment with your doctor,
have the blood test,
ask him to have the blood test. Like it's really, really simple. Your doctor might be really proactive and be doing it anyway. But if you already go for those yearly checkups where, you check like your cholesterol and diabetes, like it's so simple. If you do that every year, do your PSA every year as well. It's so simple. It comes out of the same vial of blood when you go. It's not a special test. It's just really simple. You just have to go and ask for it. And then the second thing we say to guys is make sure you have it around the same time each year, every year, just so that you're consistent and it's around that 12-month mark. So, one guy said to us that he does all of his tests every year on his birthday. That's how he remembers. I personally think you can do better things on your birthday, but whatever makes you... Whatever makes you remember. Yes. Whatever makes you remember.
That makes you remember and off you go,
Go. But we just say, try and be consistent. So if you generally go, every June, then go every, try and go the next June, et cetera. And then, like I said before, it's really important for guys to actually know what their PSA score is. Their PSA score is a unique number to them. We hear a lot of guys go, oh, my doctor just told me I'm fine. And we go, okay, that's great, but what is you will have a number. What is that number?
And they should know.
And they should know what that is, because that's what you need to keep track of on year. So, for example, if your PSA score for you is 1.7, it should stay at 1.7 every year. But if all of a sudden, you know, over a 4-year period, you have 1.7, 1.7, 1.7, 2.8, you know, that's a bit of a significant jump. You need to go and see what's going on. So that's why we say to guys, have a PSA test, learn what your score is, have it every year, and keep a track of that number. And, you know, we see guys do it all the time with their diabetes levels, with their cholesterol levels. It's just so simple. Like, it's just another number to keep track of. It's not hard. We're not asking you to, you know, stand on your head and drink a glass of water and recite the, you know, twinkle, twinkle, little star. Like, this is not.
But I think, like, the message we give is really, is not groundbreaking, really. We to give them tools so that they can look after themselves. And I think that's the important thing, because at the end of the day, the responsibility for our health rests back on ourselves. And no one can do that. For I can tell these guys, please go and have a test. This is what you should do. This is what happened to me. You know, this is my family. This is the life we now have to live without a very important person in our life. But the onus is on them. I can't make them go. I can give them encouragement to go. I can give them the information to know what to do. But then the responsibility is theirs.
Yes. And, you know, I think the thing around what you're saying, so I'm just going to summarize it again, what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong. 1 is that there are no symptoms. 2 is that if there are any changes in any aspect of your wellness, go and get curious about that with a health professional. And then as far as really being kind of best practice around prostate prevention or prostate cancer prevention is have a test every year that you can get done with any of your bloods, know your PSA score, and then just we want to see it stay the same. So it's not necessarily that if it goes up, it's bad. If it went down drastically, that could be a sign.
No, it never.
It could also be a sign. I mean,
but it will go up.
It never goes down.
It virtually never goes down.
So it's a little bit like cholesterol. It's generally going to creep up or something.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, there are other factors, and without giving you the 30-minute talk, we do know that there are some medications that can interfere with the test.
And so can make it go down.
Yes.
So,
but, you know, these days, generally, most people are on top of it, and there's different forms of the test as well. But the most common test that's done out there, which is it's called just the PSA test, you are looking for that rise, and that rise normally indicates that something's going on. Yeah.
So we tell them that. And I think, you know, we try and encourage them to go and do what I call the right thing, because it's such a simple thing to do. Because as I said to them, you know, and we say to them all the time, every one of those people, and there's more than 3,600 men died last year from prostate cancer, but every one of them has a family.
Yeah.
Every one of them. Every one of them has someone who loved them, who's missing them greatly. And you can't replace people. You can't. Doesn't matter what you do, there's a hole there that you can't fill.
Yes.
So I think that's the thing.
And I think, you know, you said you're not teaching groundbreaking information. However, what I've learned in my career is that it's often the smallest amount of information and education that makes a difference. It's like bringing it to the consciousness. Like even the people who've heard this, it's now top of mind. So when they're at the doctor, even just asking for that test can be the beginnings of shifting, you know, the consequence that, as you rightly point out, is potentially in the longer term and in the worst case scenario, irreversible and immeasurable in its value. So, you know, when I always look at, you know, we teach a matrix in business, for instance, or even to my children, it's like risk versus consequence, right? Like if something has a low risk of happening and a low consequence, well, then it's maybe something you're prepared to run the gauntlet on. But if something has a low risk but a high consequence, you know, it's I suppose what I'm saying is, what I'm hearing here is this is a really simple decision to make, because, you know, the avoidance of this super high consequence requires such a simple action. And you're right in saying that no one else can make that choice for you. But if you're listening and you're a woman, every single man in your life, share this information with them. Over 40, go and get your test done. It's that simple. And demand it from them. If you love them, demand it from them. Make that a request. Make it your request if they're only going to take the action as a result of your request. And if you're a man listening, value your life. And the one thing I want to say, Jill, about what you shared earlier with Brian's naming, what I love about the Man Up, other than just that it's about manning up, is it really is teaching the totality of what I know to be masculine energy, which isn't just this strong push on, suffer and keep enduring energy, but it's opening to the idea that we are a little bit infallible. Do you know what I mean? That takes strength to admit our vulnerabilities. And I feel like particularly the culture that you spoke about earlier, where we've got these such rugged, strong Australian men out there doing the hard labor, there is this subconscious culture of, I don't want to show any weakness, physical, emotional, or, mental. So I just won't look. I'll just push on and she'll be right, mate. She'll be right. But it actually takes deep strength. And if we could have more men recognize that true strength to go, I don't feel great. Let me check in with myself, or I'm going to check that everything's okay, because that's actually the ultimate in strength, if you will, is assessing your vulnerabilities and making sure that everything's okay. So just offering that as a reframe for any men listening. It's not a sign of weakness to get your health checked.
Oh, heavens
that's
no.
Intelligent. And for the people you love, it means that you're going to be here for them. And that is true strength, is making sure that you're well.
I was about to say that's one of the things that we try to do with our educational program, because we know as women, we're really good at, looking after ourselves and hauling ourselves to the doctor and really, getting on top of those yearly appointments and know when to go for those pap smears and those mammograms and everything else, and it gets drilled into us from a really young age, from a certain age, from you're sexually active, you should be having pap smears. From a certain age, you should be having mammograms and we feel like there's a bit of, and we felt this way for a little while, that there's a bit of a disconnect. And then when it comes to men, because as you said, there's always been that notion and that stigma of like, oh, men just need to harden up, they're fine, it's right, mate, she'll be right, tough it out, and we try to educate men to be like, no, you guys, instead of being reactive to all this, be really proactive about your health, really, get on top of it. And it's not, you're not for lack of a better word, you're not a sissy for having like a yearly checkup with your doctor and doing all of that. You're just ensuring your best health. And like, I have this conversation with guys all the time, and I'm like, you go to the gym 6 days a week. Why do you do that? Oh, because I want to be healthy. Okay, well, there's more aspects than just going to the gym 6 days a week for being healthy. There's going to the dentist, going to the doctor, having yearly tests. It's not just one part. It's this whole round holistic perspective.
But I think also we actually do this all wrong from the very beginning, because we get our young women prepared. And Leah went to a private girls' school, and in grade 11 and 12, they started to go, okay, the things that are important to you as you're moving forward into the world and becoming a young woman, at university and at work and doing all these things, is pap smears, mammograms, all these things are things that you need to do for your health. We drill that into them from a very young age. And then my son went to a private boys' school. There was none of that. No mention of, these are the cancers that are specific to you guys. This is what, and
it's all drive safely and defensive driving and finances.
And there was none of, this is what you should be considering. And it's not now, but it's later. And it's a message, if it's not relevant to you, you can take it home to dad. And we actually did a talk at one of the private boys' school, the same school my son went to. And when we're talking, we only did grade 12s. And when we're talking to them, the young man sitting in the front, and I said, oh, this is a message you can take home to dad. I know it's not really relevant to you at the moment. And this young man said, oh, like I'm going to do that. I'm not going to have that conversation with my father. And I said, well, here's a conversation. I said, I have another man who's got to have with his son who's about your age, and that he's in his early 50s and he's going to die. I said, and I'm going to tell you right now, that's a really, really tough conversation to have. So the conversation I want you to have with your dad is a whole lot easier than the conversation that dad's going to have with his son. Have a think about that.
Yeah. And this is it, isn't it? It really does come down to the conditioning that we have just around open communication, vulnerability, the fact that, we might have fears or resistance to being perceived as anything other than the mask we want to put forward, which for so many young men is strong, capable, and I've got this shit, So there's that. And then the other thing that I'm hearing you guys say again and again, and as a reminder to everyone listening, and you can't find someone who is more pro health and all the things that associate with health, what we put into our body, what we think and how we move it, is that there is this misconception in society, I don't have time to be healthy. But if you don't find time for health, you will have to find time for illness. And that is the reality of the toxic world we live in. So if we are not actively drinking, eating well, I mean, it goes back to all of that. And you can still do all of those things. And as you say, epigenetics shows some of us have predispositions, environmental factors. There are so many other things at play. So being proactive is the only way to at least stack the odds in your favor, because we're all living in a world where there are things that are going to come, and depending on how receptive we are to them, going to leave their imprint in our lives. But what we do know, and I'm sure this is across all cases of cancer, although I'm not an expert, so please correct, early detection is the key. So at the very testing, some people will say, and it's a bit fatalist in nature, but I can hear people say, well, when it's my time, it's my time. Or, if something's got to take me, how there's often these phrases, I don't know if anyone else can hear certain people in their lives having stated this, or it's just me.
Yes.
But it's like, well, sure. And, it's that whole fate versus destiny versus self-will. It's like, we do get to be a co-creator in our reality. And at the foundations of it, it comes down to the sovereignty of your physical body, right? What's going on in there? Are you attuned? And if you're not attuned, because I feel like the more attuned we are, the more we would notice those differences. But notwithstanding at those tests, as you're saying. And so the question I have is, and I'm curious, does the medical system, so you beautiful ladies are warriors going out into the world, sharing this message, you're on a quest. And I'm curious, does the system support you in that? If I was a 42-year-old and I went to a GP and I'm a male, is that doctor going to say to me, oh, well, you're over 40 now, you should be getting your PSA tested, let's run your bloods? Like, is it part of their protocols? And if not, why not? And how do we address that?
How long is a piece of string?
Sorry,
open Pandora's box. It's really hard. We are not going to dismiss GPs whatsoever. GPs have a really tough job. They have to know a little bit about every single part of your body and what's going on, and family history, and they're working within a system where we've got an aging population, a booming population, and really there's not enough doctors to support the system. My husband's not a GP, but he's an emergency doctor, and the system is at its breaking point. Just all around. So we're not dismissing doctors at all. They do a really tough job, and most of the time they've got 13 minutes to do it in, which is really hard if you're trying to build a loyal and long relationship with your patient. We know some doctors are really good. So for example, Dad's GP, unbeknownst to Dad just got to a certain age, and our GP went, when you go for yearly bloods, I'm just doing PSA and off you go.
Other doctors not so good.
And other doctors don't. So we find that there's some doctors, when guys listen to our talk and they go, doctors are really receptive and go, yeah, you know what, you're already going for cholesterol and diabetes and everything else. Let's just tick that box and you get it. That's great. And then we find that there are doctors that push back, because at the moment the guidelines state that PSA should only be tested once men turn 50 and if there's a concern or if they ask. We do know that there's a bit of a push from the Urological Society of Australia to start testing sooner. So that's at least a step in the right direction of being proactive.
Because it gets better results. Yes. Because, the one thing we didn't mention is if you catch this disease in the early stages, you have 98.4% chance of surviving it. And if you wait till you're in advanced stages, stage 4, you've got about 16% chance of surviving it. And we know, and the reason why we spend so much time in the regional and rural areas is because the doctors aren't available. Like some places don't have a resident doctor.
And that's what I was about to say. It's so multifaceted because the metropolitan areas are so well catered for. And then it's an uphill battle. And my husband will tell you the same thing with hospitals. Trying to get permanent resident staff out into these regional and rural communities is really hard. There's no incentives. The hospitals and facilities out there are generally last thought of, so therefore poorly funded compared to their city counterparts. Of course, it's natural for doctors to try to come in where there's better facilities, more technology, etc. So then once you start going to those areas that rely on locum doctors, who are sometimes only there for 2, 3, at a stretch, maybe 4 weeks. It's really hard for that community to trust a doctor that's not going to stay any longer than a month. You know, a lot of them go, oh, well, why would I bother even doing that test, because that doctor's here now and in a month they're going to be gone and it's a new doctor and then I'm going to have to start again. So, and
then you also get some doctors that just go, well, by the time the test results come back, I'm not even going to be here, so I'm not even going to bother.
Yeah. So it's you get multifaceted uphill battle we get. I
can see the struggle for. I can definitely see the struggle for rural from you know, literally the what's it like, the front line. But I suppose what I'm wondering, and this is just my entrepreneurial brain, which is like, when there's a hole in the system, not any one person, like, and I agree, doctors have got way too much on their shoulders. But I'm wondering if, like, even in the system somewhere on a, you know, on either it's a pathology level, when they do blood works, it's like, oh, you're over 40. And it's like the system, literally the computer program or whatever, triggers shall we do this test as well? Because their age, their date of birth is in the system. Like,
yes.
I'm just wondering if we can't maybe start relying on the people that are already overloaded, because it's kind of like saying to, you know, going to a busy mum who's, you know, juggling heaps of things and saying, oh, and can you just, I know this is really important. So, and they're kind of like, are you serious?
Yes.
Meanwhile, could we somehow integrate into the system so that it's less load? This is just my brain thinking. And even if we had a major push from our health authorities, that was like, there was, you know how we have months every year where it's like cancer month or this month. Why don't we do a month every year where it's like your check month? And here's the things you should check. If you're human, these things, go and get these tested. Cholesterol. Yes. if you're a female and over this age group, add this subsection. And if you're a male and over this group, add this. And here's where you can get tested. And it's not just blood work, but maybe it's like, have you been to your dentist? Have you been, like, we should have a month where it's like checkup month, you know, like something like that, and then integrate into a system. Part of me is just like, let's hold the intention of something like that, because it's a lot to have on your shoulders, and then to not have the support of the frontline workers. But, you know, the thing I've certainly in recent times, in the era we live in today, it's sometimes the system has all the momentum, and even good people can just get kind of lost in that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we, on the back of you saying that, not us, because we barely have time to scratch ourselves these days, but we do work, we're all about working collaboratively. It's something that I get really frustrated with personally, because it's something that organizations in the prostate cancer sphere tend not to do really, really well. But for example, in the breast cancer world, they do it fabulously. Each organization does something different, but they lean on each other and they work collaboratively. And it's, you know, it's fantastic to see, because at the end of the day, they're all about the same thing. They're all about giving the best possible outcomes to women with breast cancer. And then at the ultimate core is to eradicate breast cancer. But I think that's universal against any kind of cancer, really, is to eradicate it. But we are working collaboratively with a group called Maxwell Plus. And they're really, really good. All they do is blood testing. That's it. That's all they do. So they, it is a bit of a subscription program. So it's $10 a month, but essentially you sign up to them. Let's say you're over 40, you're 42, and let's say your GP goes, no, you're too young. You don't need that yet. It's fine. You can go to these guys. You sign up. They go, yep, you're over 40. We'll happily test you. It's $10 a month. And they send you out the blood testing form. You can go wherever to do the PSA.
So they actually email it out to you.
And but then those results, instead of going back to your GP, and we're not trying to cut out the GP here, but it actually goes back to Maxwell Plus. It was founded by a couple of really smart IT tech guys. So they've got artificial intelligence that reads it, but then as a safety net, they have a panel of urologists that specialize in prostate cancer analyzing those results as well. So then if there is any cause for concern, these urologists then have the capability of, you know, referring you on for more testing, referring you on to a urologist in your area, because it's Australia-wide, this program.
Actually, it's starting to be worldwide, because they're now sending this program out to the UK and into Europe. So,
but it works, you know, really, really well, because it's, you know, gives guys another avenue to go and get tested. It's being checked by a computer program and urologist, and you're being referred on, and you're not having to try and navigate that scape by yourself. And for $10 a month, like Mum and I are one of these, we drink almond cappuccinos, which, you know, in some places are $6 a cup.
I'm sure
of coffee.
You also have the avocado on toast, ladies. Come on.
I know, right? Yes. So, I mean, at the rate I'm going between almond cappuccinos and avocado on toast, I'm never going to be able to afford a house.
But between the two of us,
like that's $12 a day.
$12 a day. So for one cup each.
Yeah. So when we're on the road, and some days I need 2 cups of coffee, you know, like for $10 a month, you know, I look out there and I see, you know, and we do get some pushback when we tell guys that, and they're like, oh man, $10 a month. And I go, and yet you'll probably go on Friday night to the local Dan Murphy's and drop $120 on a slab of beer. You know, like it's all, let's
100%. I mean, I couldn't agree more. I mean, health is wealth, and yet the irony of it is we don't value it until we lose it.
Correct.
And that's the uphill battle that I sense and I feel and I hear that you guys are experiencing. It's like just this little bit of education can change their lives. It's just that they don't think statistically it's going to happen to them. So I just want to reiterate for the listeners that we said that the numbers were 1 in 5.
Queensland men.
5. Like
for Queensland,
that's just crazy high. Like that's
so
crazy.
More men are diagnosed with prostate cancer than women are with breast cancer.
Yes, like our key take-home message.
And more men die from prostate cancer than women die from breast cancer every year.
Jill, do you know this kind of stuff this is why this is so important, because what we are seeing in the world today and in any area or any arena, any field, is that it's actually just the best marketers and propagandas. And when I say propaganda, I don't mean that in the negative sense.
No.
It's like this, the simplest expression of this would be the squeaky wheel gets the oil, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like the person who's out there and getting it in the right way and either making it fashionable or kind of collecting people and then getting people inside from a goodwill perspective. That statistic just blew my mind, that more men die of prostate cancer than women do of breast cancer. Now, you could argue it's because we have better resources and now skills and tools, but we should have that. I mean, this is one of these things equality. We should be having that for our men as well. We
Absolutely.
should be having as much for men as women.
Absolutely.
And it's unacceptable, isn't it? It should be unacceptable to us that something that, and again, from what I heard earlier, almost an 80% difference in survival versus not occurs between early detection and blood work.
Yep.
And I want to show my ignorance here, but I wonder if this is a shared ignorance. Is it true that many men perhaps think that checking their prostate with the doctor requires the finger up the bum?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Should we be doing a full TV thing? It's like, guys, you don't need to go finger up the bum. You just need to get your finger pricked with some blood and then you're safe, because it is these old wives' tales that so often
and that's we've had men actually walk in and see our title on the screen and what we're all about, and they go, I am not having the finger up the bum exam today, and turn around and walk out, and we go, no, we aren't doing that today. That is not what we're doing.
Miseducation, right? Like miseducation. And where, so women listening, men listening, you don't get tested for your prostate, finger up the bum. You get, I mean, I'm just going to say it because it needs to be
just a blood test.
And I'm glad that I asked it, because I'm like, I feel like, and I mean, I feel like prostate, that's the thing. And I actually feel like even my partner was like, I'm going to get my prostate checked. I'm not looking forward to it, and then I think he came back and said, oh, it was just a blood test. But it's like, this is where we need to share this information, because that little bit of misinformation creates stigma, creates fear, creates resistance.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely. And we try to tell people as well, sorry, Mum, we try to tell people as well, we give Dad's story of he got it in the nice early stages where it was still contained to the prostate. And we say, like, that's the best place to get it. And not from a chance of survival point of view, but Dad had 2 days in hospital. He did have a couple of side effects, because you don't cut nerves, but you do have to move them. So they get bruised for a little bit. So there is some side effects with that. But if you get it nice and early and those nerves aren't impacted, it's 2 days in hospital, you have a couple of side effects that clear up. And Dad was back in work in 6 weeks. So it's minimal time off work. It's
no chemo,
no follow-up.
No radiation, nothing.
We've met men that are in stage 4 and are still here in the healthcare system 9 years, not 9 months, 9 years later. So that's a emotional and financial burden on the family. It's a big financial burden on the healthcare system. It's like,
but
so,
it's no quality of life. I know this lovely gentleman that we met when we first started this charity virtually, and then he was diagnosed with like probably stage 3. He's now stage 4 prostate cancer. But in that time, he now can no longer work. He no longer can walk any distance, and he uses a mobility scooter. It's all in his bones. And as he said, well, the bottom line is it's going to die. He's going to die from it. It's just a matter of when. He knows he's like, and as he said, I'm getting to the sticky end of the deal now. And there's no joy in any of it.
No.
For any family that's sitting with him, for him, there's no joy in any of it, to be honest. And I think people need to realise that the digital rectal examination is no longer even in the guidelines as being recommended. And most GPs won't do it these days. And,
there's even some urologists that won't do it because they don't find it's as accurate. There's more accurate ways these days.
And they send you off for an MRI. And I think we need to take the whole fear out of
getting tested
because, and that's what it is. And, we actually had a gentleman in Longreach when we did a talk, and we talked about then in those days where the DRE was actually still recommended. And he went, oh, no, love, I just wouldn't do that. I'd rather die. And I said to him, well, dying's an option. It's always on the table. It's not the best option you're going to take, I can tell you. And it's literally 30 seconds in your life. And if it can save your life, why wouldn't you do it? And we subject ourselves as women to far more, and we don't complain. We've been, it's drummed into us. This is what you should need to do from a very,
Or Jill, we do complain, but we still do it.
Yeah.
What I mean? Like, I don't think there's many women out there who really enjoy an ice cold metal implement, going into their body, and it's not pleasant.
Mammogram.
Yeah, we don't like having our breasts squeezed. But the point is that, and this is the real key thing, is the stigma's been reduced around it, and we openly admit that we don't enjoy it, and there's freedom in that expression. So yeah, the big thing for me is I feel like we need to call in or energetically, send out this desire for some really Aussie ochre personality to take the head of a campaign that's like, guys, your prostate is like your powerhouse, and it doesn't require a finger to, up the butt. Like literally, it doesn't require a finger up the butt. It's a blood test. And if you didn't know that, you're behind the times. And if you're a real man, you man up and you get your blood test done this year, every year, just for the women you love. And we just need that. And we need the government to also recognize, as you very well said, people 9 years in the health system cost the health system money, and that could be prevented if they knew that they just need the test. Anyway, look how emotional I'm getting. I should come over to you guys and we should be all about it.
Well, we love talking to women because I know I actually, one time when we were trying to fundraise, and I rang, I think they were a group of engineers, and when I got to talk to them, you always target like what you think is going to be a male-dominated industry. And I got this young lady, and she said, oh no, we're actually a whole firm of women. And she said, so we're not really interested, in a man's disease. And I said to her, I just have one question for you before I go. And I said, so you have no men in your life that you care about? And she said, oh, no, that's not true. And I said, well, you pretty much said that's a man's disease and I don't need to worry about it. So I'm assuming there's no men in your life that you will miss if they're not there. And because I said, I can tell you now, I have a husband and brother-in-laws and a son and friends. And I said, and my friends' husbands, I said, if I actually started counting the number of men that I actually care about, it's enormous.
Yeah.
And I said, there would probably be more than 100 men that I can actually say I would care if they were suddenly not in my life.
Yes.
And they're not really good friends. Sometimes they're just guys I met. And I thought, well, you're a really nice fellow. I'd want you to hang around.
Jill, I'm going to be telling everyone, and everyone, I'm going to be asking my checkout chick if her husband's been tested. And this is what we get to do. This is what, we have such a movement. And I lately have been speaking more and more about the compassion and concern I have for men, because the women's movement, we are so strong and fierce at the moment around our equality and around expanding all parts of ourselves. And that work needs to be supported for the men too, because they're being left behind. But my request, if you are listening to this podcast It's a very clear request. And this is what I am committed to doing. So I'm making this commitment to the two of you and anyone listening. Is immediately today, I'm going to call my dad and ask him, has he had his PSA test this year? I'm going to ask my partner, has he had his PSA test? I actually know he has because of that recent conversation, but I'm going to double check. I'm not going to assume anything.
Ask him what his score is.
And ask him, does he know his score?
Yeah. And then I'm going to make sure that this week I mention it to 3 other men and 3 other women who know men, because this is the ripple effect. This is what I'm most passionate about. We get to remember as humans, it's not impossible to make a difference. It is completely possible through the things that you choose to spend your money on, through the conversations you choose to have, that you can save lives. So if everyone listening to this podcast speaks to 3 men and 3 women this week, and then makes the request of those people to carry, the message of your husband, Brian, who doesn't have the good fortune to be here, but whose life can still save lives. That's the beauty of legacy, and that's the beauty of impact. If we all do that, 3 tells 3 tells 3, yeah, we just created an amazing multi-level marketing program, but one that is dedicated to the salvation of healthy humans and keeping us all healthy. So that's my commitment, and I'm going to request that everyone listening do that. Now, the other request I have, and I'd love you to share, is how do we provide support beyond that? Obviously, we can share the message, which I know is the core of your organization, but I also know, being a business owner and not in the not-for-profit space, that it takes money to provide services of value. It takes money to get yourself to places. It takes money to do good work in the world. This is a reality, is we love to think that all virtuous things should be for free, and we have this weird taintedness about money, but money well directed drives the most virtuous things on this planet. I believe that. So how can we support you? What is it? What are your drives? How do people literally donate to something like your organization, or specifically your organization?
Well, we have a website, and they can donate on the website.
Yeah, we are a registered charity with DGR status, which means that we can give you a tax receipt for tax time, and you can claim it back, which is fantastic.
We hold events during the year. So we've already done an inspirational speaker event this year, which was with Samantha Bloom from Penguin Bloom, the movie, if you know about Samantha's story. And I think inspirational people for me are people who have taken the worst adversity in their life and they've managed to come out the other end. That doesn't mean to say you can't wish for something not to have changed. It's going to change. But so we do each year we do an inspirational speaker event. We do a fashion parade and high tea, and this year we're adding a trunk show to that in October.
That was for the ladies.
That's for the ladies.
Sounds like a good time, ladies. I mean, this is my point. So we're going to link to the website, but
yes,
the request is everyone go to the website, see if the inspirational speaker is that an online thing? Can people?
No, this was an in-person event. So something will make
we had that as a nighttime event at the Emporium Hotel, and I
must make a disclaimer that at the moment these events are just in Queensland and predominantly in Brisbane. So yeah, we had that. We've got a high tea coming up. We do have a gala dinner every year, and this year we're going to make it our Christmas party at the end of the year as well.
Because we figure after COVID, everyone needs a bit of a party, to be honest.
Well, and something that I would love to extend to you, just even publicly here, is one of the things, that's available to us in this digital world is digital reach. And I would love to support you through my mentorship, if you require it or desire it, to, when you run that live event, sell your live tickets, but also live stream it and have people from around the world buy a ticket, and then we could have 2,000 people buying, even if it's a lower cost ticket, because they don't have the hands-on, they're not getting paid the drinks and water, but it's about the education, it's about the energy and the intention of the donation. And I mean, I buy tickets to online summits all the time because I want to hear those speakers. But then if I did that knowing that all the donations or all that ticket cost was going, and then likewise, for your programs, your online programs, if we could make that digital, we could reach even more people in far-reaching places where you two beautiful women can't actually get to. So if you need help around that digitization of education, because I do a lot of live things too, but I've learned how to make that digital, and then it does give you more reach, and then that's more impact. And I would love to donate my time to support you with that.
That would be fantastic. We would love that. But I guess we also do a lot of, I mean, for us, we love the money. Don't get us wrong. It keeps us afloat. It keeps us going. We can't really do what we do for free, only because we you know, my car pre-COVID did over 70,000 Ks in 1 year because we drive everywhere. It's a lot when you think about how much diesel goes into that.
Yeah.
But, you know, my dad's underlying foundation with Man Up was always just educating men. Like, you can't know something until you get taught it. So, you know, we say to people out there all the time, you know, we always post where we're going on tours and if we've got any community events coming up. If you're in the area and you see it and you follow us on social media, you know, feel free to pop along if it suits you. We always advertise any community events that people are holding on our behalf and donating funds for, and they're always great, like golf days or whatever else it is. And if you're in the area and you can come, great, come. Like, we love it. We love connecting with those people. We love seeing them have a good time and raise money for good causes. So, I mean, I guess that's for us.
We will link to everything and we'll get your Instagram handles too. But what I'll even go a step beyond and suggest people do is, you are only 2 people going to specific locations. There's going to be so many. I mean, I have listeners all around the world. So there's going to be people who won't be able to get to, you know, the Toowoomba Golf Day. I don't even know.
Yes.
Yeah. But if there is, you know, but they can tag a friend that lives near Toowoomba, or they can tag a friend who tags a friend. So it's, again, the ripple effect. Don't forget that and I feel like society gets to remember this now more than ever right now, is just because it isn't impacting you directly doesn't mean you can't be of influence in a positive way in that space. And
absolutely.
You know, I mean, you have 2 women spreading information about prostate cancer. So itself, I mean, that in itself proves my point. I would really love to wrap up with.
Can I just mention one other thing?
Absolutely.
Sorry, she always does this.
So during COVID, we couldn't, and particularly last year, we couldn't travel. So we actually did a directory of services of prostate cancer. So it's free to download on your
Apple, Android, everything.
On your web, you know, you
can link to it from our website.
So if you put in your postcode or your address, let's say Mackay, and it lists up everything from where you can have your blood test, where the MRI machines are, oncologists, urologists, mental health services, exercise physiologists, because we thought if we made life a little bit more simple and that was easily accessible all in one place, that maybe men in the bush in particular, but we also did it for Brisbane, so it's just for Queensland, because Queensland Health, I have to give a shout out to them, actually gave us a grant to do the app. And the app's not like, building an app like that is expensive, and we never had the money to do it. And Brian always wanted to do it because he said, you know, we were asked all the time, oh, you know, can you refer, like, who's a good urologist, or do you know an exercise physiologist, or do you know someone that just deals in men's health?
They would always ask us when we were on the road in Emerald, in Atherton, and I'm like, I'm not from here, I'm really sorry, I don't know.
So we sat and did. It took us 9 months of doing that directory of services, but that's available. And we just, you know, the more people who spread the word that we have that available and it's easily accessible, and it's just to make life really easy, because being down that path of trying to find things, and in the end you're clutching at straws, you really are, because you think any little thing that will help, I will try it, I will do it, I will, just tell me what to do to make life better, and I will absolutely grab it. And towards the end, I can assure you, you are grabbing at any little straw you can possibly find in the great big ocean. So we're trying to make life easy for guys and their families. We are
making life easy for guys. Our job, my job as I see it, is to have them know that this is available, because as Leah said earlier, we don't know what we don't know until we know. And so, and we can't blame people for that, but you guys are doing everything that you can. And our job as a community and as a collective is to support the elevation of this, like the awareness that it's even available, because you've done the hard yards. And I hear what you're saying is that people don't know the next step, and the value of mentorship and the value of any kind of leadership like you're providing is that it makes it feel safer, it makes it available sooner, and it makes it clearer. And that next step, when you're already stressed and you're already dealing with a lot, is so much easier.
Yes.
To provide that for everyone. So we're going to link to all of that. We'll link to the app. We'll do all of those things. But, you know, the big kind of umbrella that I would love your thoughts on, because you said it earlier, Jill, bad things happen to good people every day. Every day. That is a reality of life, and it is an uncomfortable truth, and one that we struggle with, I feel, at times, because we have this perception that there's always a justice or a karmic reality in our reality. And it just certainly, we can point in any which direction and we'll find beautiful humans suffering.
Oh, absolutely.
Without cause. So let's accept that suffering is, you know, as Buddha said, a part of life. And then beyond that, I suppose the question is, there does seem to be in life people who suffer immensely, experience loss, go through dark nights of the soul, go through breakdowns, and they transmutate that energy, that experience into silver linings, into lessons, into breakthroughs, into positive change, you know, that heartbreak or whatever it is. And then there are people that never seem to recover, you know, from the same, and it's different for everyone. And you know, when we suffer similarly, but it's never the same for each of us. So I suppose my question is what is your advice to any listener now who at the moment or very recently has been through something that they still have not reconciled, or as either there's a way through? I suppose it's a hard question to ask, but I suppose I'm asking for anyone who's right now in the thick of a deep suffering, whether it's their own personal health or the loss of someone, or just something that feels heavy and dark and unfair and unjust. What would you say to them with all of the hurdles that you two have had to move through personally and in your family? What would be the advice you would give them?
I think my one piece of advice for anybody going through, particularly what I've been through, is you can't be everything to everybody, and you have to be kind to yourself first. And sometimes you just have to be selfish, and sometimes you have to say no, because sometimes, I've got to be honest, I had days where it was all I could do was to get out of bed and have breakfast and lay on the couch. And I wasn't depressed. I wasn't that dreadfully unhappy. I was just exhausted, physically, mentally, over life. And you can't be everything for everybody. You can't. And, you know, I think my big concern has always been, particularly once Brian, we knew was terminal, was my children. And my son actually summed it up one day, because I had another health scare, and he said to me, I cannot virtually remember a time from when you were diagnosed, and he was 17 when I was diagnosed with breast cancer, when either one or both of my parents were not either being diagnosed with cancer or having treatment for cancer. I cannot remember a time. And this is 17 years later. And I thought, you know, so I think for me as a parent, it's how do you get your kids through that? Because that's something that, a scar that they have to learn to live with, and they're very resilient. So I think how we approach all of that in life reflects on the ones around us. And I think you've got to think about them as well, because one day I'm not going to be here, but they've got to get through that as well. So we need to give them the resources to go, well, you know, okay, I did the very best I can. And I look at what I do every day and I go, do you know what? I do the very best I can for everyone around me. And if I can make one little scrap of difference, then I've done a job well done. That's, you know. And Brian used to always say, if I can save one person, he said, at the end of the day, it's a job well done, because they get to go home with their family.
Oh, I think he'd be very happy then with what's
and that's what I was about to say. We say to guys all the time that Man Up was Dad's baby, and it's now and it's now up to us to carry it on. And every time we have a little win, or every time something big happens, like for example when we won the funding to do the Directory of Services last year through Queensland Health, and I said to Mum, gosh, Dad would be so proud, like this was on his list, and so like we need to do this. And I guess that's always, you know, the little wins keep us going. But I guess like for me on that, you know, it's eloquently popped up over the last few days, and I think it was a Martin Luther King or someone, I can't remember, but essentially it was just like, you know, you've got a set of stairs in front of you, don't worry about tackling the whole staircase, you just have to take that first step. And that resonated very true with me, particularly after Dad passed away, because that was literally every day. It was like, you know, you wake up every morning and you go, all right, all I have to do today is actually just get out of bed. That's all I have to do. If I achieve anything else on top of this today, it's the cream on top. But today, my main aim is to just get out of bed. And mum always says it doesn't get better. It can't get better. It just gets easier, which it does. But I guess my takeaway to people, and I'm having this a lot with my close girlfriends at the moment, because we're all, there's snap lockdowns everywhere with COVID. We're all really struggling with that. And I said to them, like, for me anyway, don't bottle it up, is what I say a lot. If you're raging inside, go outside and scream. Like, don't bottle it up, let it go. And that's what actually really got me through that initial period after Dad passing away, and really getting me through even now when we face hurdles with Man Up, is I just allow myself to feel those emotions. And there's some days that my husband just looks at me and he goes, "Are you right?" And I just burst into tears and go, for some reason today I am just really missing Dad, and all I want to do is sit and cry. And then there's other days where, like, I just want to scream because nothing's going my way. And I've just learned to accept that and really just go, like, today is just not a good day. And I just really need to start again. And I'm really frustrated, and I'm just going to do whatever I need to do to let those emotions out. So, I've seen, particularly with my friends, they bottle it up, and then the tiniest thing just makes them absolutely explode, and they take it out on people around them that they don't mean to. And, everyone kind of gets caught up in that fire line. So I guess that's my kind of, if you are in that dark place, or you're really struggling and you feel like that you can't get out of that darkness or that hole, or however you want to describe it, is okay, there's a pinpoint of light and there's a ladder or there's a stair. Don't worry about how long it is. Take that first step. You've just take it, and then take the next one the next day, and the one after that, and build on it. And then if you feel sad, or if you feel rage, or if you feel something, just express that, whether it's journaling, whether it's screaming out in your backyard, or whatever, crying in the shower, whatever it is, just do that and acknowledge it.
I think too, when I was having my breast cancer treatment, and I had a lot of treatment, and I can remember saying to the oncologist at one stage, "Well, you never told me that would happen." And when because I had a lot of reactions to medication, had a lot of issues, and he said, if I'd told you the whole story at the beginning, you would never have gone, you would have gone, that is just way too much for me to get through, I'll never be able to manage it. But he said, I gave you the information that you needed at the time to get you through one thing. And he said, and when we got through that, I gave you the next step. And he said, and bit by bit, we put it together and we got you to the end. And he said, if you look at the whole journey, sometimes the whole journey is so overwhelming that he said you're defeated before you even start. So he said, you've got to break it up into little bits and go, okay, well, I've done that. Now I can get through the next bit. And I think life is a little bit like that. It's going to throw you curveballs that you didn't expect. And it's how you go, okay, well, I'm going to get through it piecemeal, because that's the only way I'm going to get through it. And if I looked at the whole big picture from the beginning, I would have given up. I've got to be honest. So if someone had told me in 2004 that the rest of what had happened to me would have happened to me, I think I would have just curled up in a ball and cried forever. But you get through, you go, okay, well, I did that. I actually managed to get through that, and I'm still here. And I can get through the next bit. So it's amazing what, we're all much more resilient than we think we are.
Indeed, we are. And I think, Jill, your point, if you told me before, aside from cancer diagnosis and death and all of those things, that would be true of parenting. That would be true of the entrepreneurial journey. That would be true of so many things. So this one step at a time ethos that you're both sharing, like I second that. I third it, I fourth it, I fifth it. I think we too often compound, too many potential things in. And right now it's like, what do I do right now? What's available to me right now? So what I heard you share, and I think it's brilliant advice, is one, be kind to yourself. Two, seek connection when you need it. And if you can be of service to those you love, because taking ourselves out of our own suffering through service, as you said, Jill, I think that science has shown that that's valuable. And Leah, what I really heard you say is definitely chunk it down. And as a trauma-informed coach, I can absolutely support your last piece of advice, which I highly, highly recommend, is process the feelings now. Because if you don't process them now, they will stick around and come back bigger and stronger, and they'll pivot. So allowing yourself the freedom and the acceptance and even the loving presence to really be with even without judgment, even the things that you think, oh, I should just have my shit together, I should just feel strong. No, today I feel negative. Today I'm angry. Today I'm over it. Today it feels unfair. And you just be in that experience, because that then allows you your life force back, because you're not holding it in the repression of those feelings. Ladies, my, such a beautiful story that that you've crafted. And I mean, the thing about stories is they're, to be beautiful, they're not always sunshine and rainbows, are they? No. But they show the human experience, and your story and what you've created from it is just a testament to the strength of your spirits. And, to the thing I love most about humans, which is our hearts, and you both have such big hearts. Thank you so much for the work you do in the world on behalf of all women who love men and all men. I can't speak for the women that hate men. Perhaps they're not savvy. But for the women that love men, and there are many, and for all the men, I thank you for your persistence in this space. And I'm sure, the frustration that goes with that, and the hopelessness at times. Like, I see you, and I thank you, and I thank you, and I see you. And the work you do is necessary and needed. And I'm sure you don't get nearly enough appreciation for it, but please.
Oh, no, we love our job.
We do. Yeah,
we actually love our job. I say to my daughter all the time, the thing that is about the field that we work in is I meet really lovely people every day. And so isn't that wonderful? Yeah. Not everyone can say that, but we can.
Yeah. So thank you for your time today. And again, those listening, we're going to get those people that we love getting their tests if they're over 40. And we're also just going to share the takeaways, because the other thing that I know is that the quickest way to really have something go into your memory is to teach it, to unteach it. So, even sometimes when I reiterate to you guys, partly what I'm doing is just making sure I remember the key points. So that's how we learn. And so go and tell someone about the key points that you learned from today, so that even just the time you spent listening to this podcast isn't just like in one ear out the other, but rather integrated. And then you get to magnify the beautiful work of both, Leah, Jill, and Brian. And we couldn't be more aligned with a better cause or a purer mission. So thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for your time today. So appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you.